What's up, creators? This is Dylan from Stock Media. I am testing out the new Osmo Action. And just as a start, I want you to see how I'm setting this thing up right now. It's on a kind of a Joby-like tripod, one of these bendy tripod things. Kind of makes for a good handle, and makes it so you can kind of put it anywhere. Alright, that's pretty cool. I just did a little test. I shut this thing down. If you press the power button once, it goes to sleep. If you hold it down, it actually shuts off. But either way, if you simply press the record button, the whole thing turns on or wakes up and starts recording almost immediately. That's pretty cool. I'm curious to see how this thing does in low light, in high contrast situations where you have maybe a window in the background. I'm going to test all of the different settings and features, the rock steady, the HDR, the slow-mo. We're going to see how this thing performs in all of its basic configurations. I'm curious what the sound is like. I have no idea how good or bad the sound is in selfie mode, or how that compares to when I'm turning it around this way. I hope it sounds pretty good when it's facing me. I do plan on getting a microphone for it, but till then, until DJI releases an adapter to use a microphone, I'm gonna have to use it like this. So I hope that's at least usable. The next thing that I will be wanting to test is video mode with Rocksteady on versus HDR mode, which you can't use Rocksteady. So that's going to be a good comparison. Let me get in the car and then we'll continue. Alright, so we're officially in HDR mode. The wind's blowing a little bit more. I don't expect the audio to be any better or worse in HDR mode, but I do expect it to be a little more, I don't know, shaky. So I don't know how much better or worse it'll be. You know what? Before I drive away, let's just do a quick walk around. See how shaky it is or is not in HDR mode, because it'd be cool if I could use this, you know, most of the time, given that you get better shadows and highlights together. So curious how this is going to look. I hope that regular video mode is good enough, and I hope, and if it's not, then I hope HDR mode is better, and not too shaky. So let's get a couple shots driving around. Alright, so now I'm testing. I'm back in regular video mode so I can have the Rocksteady on. And I'm curious to see what the sound is like in the car, because we do a lot of talking in our videos while we're driving. So, you know, oh, and we're shooting 48 frames a second right now. And actually, the shadows and highlights in the selfie screen don't look too bad together. It might end up being that we don't use the HDR if, you know, this regular video mode is working out pretty well. I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to HDR. See how that looks. Back to HDR. Okay, so curious to see how much shakier this is. And I think I have the D-warp turned on. Let me check. Alright, so yes, D-warp is on. We're in HDR mode. The window's down. I'm curious to see how this sound is. Hopefully the wind filter does a good job on this camera. Let's turn D-warp off so you can see what it looks like. I like straight lines on the edges, so see my hand right now? It's not getting, yeah, it's a wide angle, so it gets a little warped, but it's not bent, it's not curved like a fisheye. So let's try D-warping. And I said let's try D-warping, let's try not D-warping. So here we are. Check my hand again as I get towards the, oh, wait, that was weird. Yeah, all right. Definitely bending there on the edges, so. This thing is wide. You can just, there, see my whole front. See me and the camera's only about a foot away from my face right now. That's crazy. I'm gonna go back into video mode and check the rock steady stabilization mode. I just found Cindy D-like. So actually, I'm pretty certain I'm not going to be using HDR mode. I mean, I can't tell because I haven't seen the footage yet without the stabilizer on, but Cindy D-like, hopefully it will do a good job. We're back in video mode, shooting 48 frames a second, 4K, and I have D-Warp. D-Warp is turned on right now, so my arm stays flat. Yep. Alright. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot the rest of the video in this mode so we can see how it performs. The screen just went dark. I wonder if I hit one of these buttons. That'll... Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and cruise around my hometown, Encinitas, California, and get some shots, see what we can get. Alright, right here is Juanita's. This place is the jam. That is where you go for your burritos, enchiladas, Happy Fish. They've got an awesome, Happy Fish has the most awesome miso soup with jalapeno miso soup. Oh, it's so good. Check out the tavern. This place is the bomb. What's up, man? Give me a big wave. How you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, man. Just ran into my old buddy Frank. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Dylan.
We're doing a quick stare test with the new camera and seeing how steady it is.
Cool.
So if I go up really fast and then come back down to you, then go up again.
Wow, you think that'll do it?
I don't know. I guess so. It's supposed to be super steady. I don't know. Cadia Pizzeria. Next, I'll be testing the slow motion. So I just found something out very interesting about the slow motion modes on this camera. If you're in 8x slow-mo in 1080p, you cannot turn on the D-Warp option. In 4x slow-mo, you can turn on D-Warp, so that's pretty interesting. So the goal of this video really is to try and figure out what settings I'll be using most on this camera. At the end of the video, I'll post what I think is best. It's different for everybody. What I think and what you think will be completely different. But this actually started, I just wanted to do an audio test, and it turned into a full-fledged camera review. Alright creators, that sums up the first test of this video. Again, we're just doing a basic first test, checking out how everything looks, how it works, checking battery life. I've been gone for probably an hour and a half and filming pretty much the entire time. It's not exactly bright in this room. I wonder how this looks. I'm about 40% battery life, which is actually pretty impressive compared to you know, how other cameras do with battery life. It's probably better battery life actually than our A6300s or even the original Osmo that we have. It's got a nice big battery. So that's impressive. I'm actually surprised that this thing's not about to die. Alright, to sum it all up, let's talk about a few things. Battery life is awesome. I already told you that, probably better than any of my other cameras. I hate auto. If you talk to any of my crew, you'll know that. Auto white balance, auto exposure, it's all over the place. That's with any camera, not just this one. So if I'm in a situation where I know I'll be inside the car talking, or I'll be outside mostly, I'll be setting manual exposure. There's definitely situations where you need auto exposure with a camera like this, so it's good to have, and it actually did okay. But white balance, auto white balance, if I'm outside, it'll be set to 5600, absolutely. Manual white balance outside, because I've had some clips, and I've had this problem with the other Osmo and GoPros and literally every camera. Outside footage, I've had to warm up 2000 degrees, which is a lot. There's a little bit of a lag in the display on this camera. I don't know if that can be fixed in firmware. It's a little bit annoying to look at when you're in selfie mode and you make a movement and then you see it half a second later. It's definitely usable, better than not having a selfie screen. It happens in selfie and on the back, so that's one against the camera, but like I said, it's usable. I'd much rather have all the other features of this camera. After hearing all the audio, I'm actually incredibly impressed with how good the audio is in this camera. I still plan on getting an external mic, but this whole video has been built, just the built-in mic on this camera. The stabilization is phenomenal. That's to be expected. It's just like the GoPro. It's gimbal-like stabilization, but digital. That's really cool. The wide angle lens, you have the opportunity to have it super wide or a little bit tighter when you de-warp and use the rock steady stabilization. I don't like it super ultra wide, so it's kind of right in the sweet spot for me. When I have de-warp and rock steady turned on, it's perfect. Don't want it any wider, don't want it any tighter. De-warp is a must unless you want the edges of everything to be round. The menus are super easy to read, super easy to navigate. You know, you just swipe left, up, right, whatever. The look and the feel. Camera looks like a GoPro, honestly. Looks and feels like a GoPro. It feels rugged, it feels strong enough. Not much else to say about that. It is compatible with GoPro mounts. So obviously not the case, but the little frame this thing comes with, I'm actually using it on a GoPro stand right now. So any GoPro gear you have, this is perfectly compatible. We have this camera before any other batteries are out. I will be buying extra batteries for this, but I can't yet. They're not available. But that said, I'd probably go through 2, maybe 3 batteries in a regular day of shooting. This camera is more so for my off-roading and overland channel, Trailbenders Overland, if you haven't seen it. And with the type of shooting I do there, you know, I'll probably keep this thing plugged in, maybe go through 2 batteries in a day. I'll probably have 3 or 4 on me though, because I always like to have extra. I'll be using this camera mostly in 4K, 24 frames a second, D-Cine-like, as opposed to HDR. The HDR kind of was color grading funny, and not being able to use the rock steady stabilization makes HDR not usable for me. If you have a gimbal you put this thing on, maybe that's good for you, but Cine D-like in regular video mode with the de-warp turned on is just that sweet spot of dynamic range and kind of the camera's ability. And de-warp again is awesome. You go from round edges to perfectly straight. So overall, this camera is phenomenal. For $350,
the fact that it outperforms so much of everything else we have, I'd rather be using this than one of our Sonys or our Blackmagic on a gimbal. Mostly because it's heavy, but it's also what I'll be using this camera for. So I recommend this camera if you're using it as an action cam, a vlogging camera. It's awesome. That's all I can say. It's great. And this camera didn't appear in the video at all. And that's okay, because I shot the entire video on this camera. I really wanted to know exactly how it will perform. And I guess the only thing that I really wish might be better is the dynamic range. The low light's not incredible, but I would never expect that from a camera like this, to have, you know, Sony-like low light abilities. But this is my new travel A-cam. I almost forgot. The slow-mo on this camera is not the greatest. If 48 frames or if 60 frames is enough for you, then it's great. It's perfect in 4K. The 1080p 4x and 8x honestly looks a lot like over-sharpened 720 footage. It's not something that I will be using often. Only if I absolutely need ultra slow-mo and sharpness, and I don't mind sacrificing a little sharpness. But I'm not super impressed with that. I'm a little bit disappointed in the slow-mo. That's okay though, because I mean 60 is what I'm used to. Every once in a while I'll shoot 120 on my Sony cameras, but this camera does 4K 60, so in that sense, it's fantastic. In the 4x and 8x slow-mo, not so great. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Keep creating. See you again in the next video. Take care.